You don't need weighted calisthenics, a video that came across my feed and that I'll be reacting to today. Because if you know me, that's a pretty bold statement, I'm not gonna lie. So let me stop yapping and let's get right into it.
If a bodyweight dip is good, a weighted dip must be next level. That's not quite right. A bodyweight dip and a weighted dip are the exact same exercise. They do the exact same thing. The point of a weighted dip is increased intensity. If you can do 50 dips, it's a lot more convenient to add weight, so you reach failure with fewer reps. Still though, we're talking about the same exercise. Back to those original numbers: 5 pull-ups, 15 push-ups, 10 dips. At this point, I don't see any reason to add weight. You could, of course, but with these numbers, you're currently in the perfect place to benefit from bodyweight calisthenics. In fact, I don't think you'll need to add weight for a very long time, if ever. That's what I want to get into today.
All right. So far, so good. I definitely do agree to this first part of this video where he mentions that bodyweight dips and weighted dips are the same movement. Secondly, I also agree with the fact that he mentioned if that you're at a point where you can do 5 pull-ups, about 10 dips, 15 push-ups, that you shouldn't straight on jump into weighted calisthenics, which is a great point that he brought about, because me personally, I don't consider that a good benchmark to reach before you start jumping into weighted calisthenics. But instead, I'd rather give these numbers out. Someone to hit at least 8 to 12 pull-ups, about 10 to 15 dips, and a minimum of about 30 push-ups before they start getting into weighted calisthenics. Now, I truly believe that if you get to that point, then you've pretty much got down the beginner level of strength in calisthenics, which will aid you in learning more advanced progressions. But let's keep watching and see what he has to say about implementing progressive overload through the use of calisthenics.
There are 2 main things you can do to increase intensity and get that rep count down so you fail with fewer reps. 1, you can alter the basic exercises and turn them into something new, or 2, you can use intensity techniques to artificially increase difficulty without changing the basic movement patterns. That first method seems to get talked about more often, and for good reason. It can be a lot of fun. This is usually the route that leads you towards more advanced skills. A push-up can eventually be turned into a planche push-up, pike push-up becomes a handstand push-up, pull-ups become one-arm pull-ups, inverted rows become front lever rows, everything can be done on rings, and so on.
All right, so right off the bat, I like the fact that he approaches progressive overload through the use of calisthenics with 2 different ways. He identifies one path as a skill approach, which is really just taking the basic 4 movement patterns of calisthenic exercises for your upper body: pull-ups, dips, push-ups, and rows, and advancing the level of difficulty of each one, with the example of starting off with the pull-ups and eventually progressing on over to the one-arm pull-up, or the second example that he provides with starting off with the standard basic push-ups and eventually progressing on over to the handstand push-ups or the straddle planche push-ups, as something that I would probably recommend is more specific to the movement pattern and body positioning of the push-ups. Now, this is a very common practice, but there is one flaw that I would like to point out when it comes to using this logic, which is not every progression level will adequately target the primary muscle group that you started off with at the first progression, but rather as you build strength and advance into the exercise progression ladder, you'll realize that some of those exercises will start to shift the degree of muscle activation from your primary muscle groups into other muscle groups. So let's take the first example that he provided and kind of analyze a little bit more deeper. The pull-ups as the first primary progression, and eventually you find yourself at the one-arm pull-ups. So let's take out the first example, the pull-ups, which is an exercise that's going to be targeting primarily the upper back and lats, and secondarily targeting the bicep brachialis and brachioradialis, which are pretty much the muscles in your forearm muscles. Then on the other hand of the spectrum, the final progression ladder from the pull-ups is going to be the one-arm pull-ups, which is actually going to be biasing more so of your bicep brachialis and brachioradialis / forearm muscles, more so than the actual upper back and lat muscles. Those are going to be considered more so the secondary muscle groups that's being worked. So yes, the one-arm pull-ups in essence still does require you to utilize your upper back and lats, especially at the beginning part of the motion where you're engaging your scapula and retraction. But you'll notice that if you have trained the one-arm pull-ups, whether it's the band-assisted one-arm pull-ups, pull-up negatives, that you're really more so focusing majority of that effort onto your forearms and then also the biceps. So If you've done one arm pull-ups, you know exactly what I mean, because no cap, after a couple repetitions with pulling yourself with one arm, you get a crazy pump on your biceps and you don't really feel that same level of muscle activation in your upper back or lats. Now, this completely changes the trajectory of building muscle in our back to another muscle group, which is not ideal or most suitable for building muscle if our intention to increase the difficulty of the pull-ups is to grow our backs. Now, this isn't true for every exercise, but it's a common theme across the board of those 4 fundamental movement patterns that I mentioned earlier. So yeah, I don't want to get too deep in this particular topic, but I thought it was important to just mention the nuances and flaws of that particular logic of just continuously advancing a particular exercise and how it changes the degree of muscle activation from one muscle group to another muscle group.
The other method I mentioned is in many ways more straightforward than the first, and is at least as much, if not more effective for building muscle. Artificially increasing difficulty with special intensity techniques lets you stay true to the basic exercises, while again reaching failure in much less time. Yes, turning the basic push-up into a pseudo-planche push-up is a great way to go, but for some, the results might not necessarily be what you hoped for. Maybe your chest grows well with basic push-ups, but the pseudo-planche version is much more of a shoulder-dominant movement for you, and that's not what you're after. This is where the second route shines through. If you grow well from basic push-ups, it makes sense to keep doing basic push-ups, whether it's with sets of 50 plus, by adding weight, or as we're about to discuss, by using intensity techniques.
Now, I really like the fact that he does mention the flawed logic of applying this skill-based approach, as what he calls it, by going through the progression ladder and advancing your strength, which isn't always going to be ideal or most suitable for hypertrophy and building muscle. And he pretty much brings up the example of starting off with the standard push-ups, which primarily hits the chest, triceps, and shoulders, and eventually building up the strength to progress into the pseudo-planche push-ups, which does shift the degree of muscle activation more so to the shoulders. Now, it does still work the chest and triceps, but the amount of effort that it takes for you to perform the pseudo-planche push-ups is going to be majority work with the shoulders. So yeah, everything that he mentions regarding that aspect is completely true, and I do agree with it. And with that being said, he is now going to be walking us through the second approach of implementing progressive overload through the use of calisthenics.
The first and most basic way to make an exercise more difficult is by slowing down the negative. If you can pump out 30 push-ups without any thought for tempo, slowing down the negative to say 3 to 5 seconds on the way down on every rep will get you to failure much sooner, possibly even with a third the number of reps. If this is enough, all you have to do is build up again using this technique. And a quick side note on tempo, while it may be beneficial to move slowly on the concentric or lifting part of a movement on occasion, I think you'll be much better off in the long run if you spend most of your time moving quickly on the way up. I cannot justify training myself to be slow, and that's exactly what you'll be doing if you always use slow concentrics. Over time, moving quickly on the way up will lead to more total reps per set, so any additional muscle growth you could maybe possibly get by moving slowly on that lifting part will be overshadowed pretty quick. Just how I see it though, you could use slow lifting if you want to, I just don't recommend it for the majority of your training.
Now, the first implementation of adjusting the intensity technique, as he calls it, is to start implementing slow eccentrics on any given exercise. And I actually do agree with this point. You want to slow down the eccentric. In his example, he slows down the lowering part of the push-up and he explodes on the concentric, which is the pressing back up from the push-up, which is a great thing to note, because what you want to do is within calisthenics, you want to always focus on training for power. If you don't have power, you're going to soon realize that it's going to take a lot much longer to adapt to progressing into other exercises, whether it's like weighted calisthenics, more advanced techniques, whether it's like the planche push-ups, handstand push-ups, one-arm pull-ups. You have to have some kind of explosiveness to your movement, especially on the concentric part of the motion. Then for his other implementations, he recommends to include pause reps, increasing the range of motion, plyometrics, which are all great. And then he mentioned a couple other methods that I personally didn't find significant or productive. But here's my stance on this whole topic, which I believe the original content creator will agree with this statement as well. And that there's a time and place when it comes to implementing weighted calisthenics so that it maximizes your training goals, whether it's for building muscle or improving your strength adaptations. And similarly, on the other end of the spectrum is that there's also a time and place to utilize just your body weight, whether it's moving up the progression ladder, using that intensity technique that he mentions, whether it's slowing down the eccentrics, pause reps. These are going to be proving useful for either goals, but it just depends on your goals and what you are currently positioned at, like your level of strength, and just taking a bunch of other variables into account. But understand this though, if you're the type who doesn't enjoy high volume training, then you want to start approaching your training, your workout split with this method. Choose a particular training principle or style that allows you to stay within a particular rep range. Now, if you want to train for strength, then you want to choose a particular method, whether it's the intensity technique or the skill-based approach, as he calls it, that allows you to stay within the 3 to 5 rep ranges. This can be done with weighted calisthenics or just advancing the progressions of an exercise. Now, if you want to train for more hypertrophy, meaning the higher end of the spectrums of rep ranges, then choose a method that allows you to stay within the 8 to 15 rep ranges, whatever rep ranges you want to stay at, which could also be done and implemented through the use of weighted calisthenics or manipulating the tempo of the exercise, meaning slowing down the eccentric, and then finally simply doing less difficult progressions of an exercise, meaning if I could do 5 handstand push-ups, but I want to train the handstand push-ups for hypertrophy, then I would regress the progression level to just doing back to wall handstand push-ups, and I'll be knocking out anywhere between 8 to 12 reps. Then you want to take note of another component that comes into play whenever you want to figure out which training discipline you want to stick to in regards to calisthenics, and that is choosing whatever method that allows you to best train for hypertrophy so you can build muscle for your desired muscle group. I will always say, if you want to do weighted calisthenics, it's just best to stick to the basic calisthenic movements and add weight to those exercises, like the weighted pull-ups or chin-ups if you want to focus on your back or biceps, weighted dips if you want to focus on your chest and triceps. This is because the exercises are simple to execute and it doesn't require a great level of understanding the technique, which will allow you for consistent reps and thus leads to greater scalability on the exercise. For example, there's no need for someone who wants to build a bigger chest to be doing weighted archer push-ups, but rather you should just stick to doing weighted dips, right? And let's say you wanted to do any push-up variation and not really go to the dip route, because some people just prefer to not do dips, then just do weighted push-ups, right? So take this with a grain of salt and understand that this argument could be applied to a bunch of other exercises, whether it's from the standard push-up progression to doing other push-up progressions. Just stick to the basics if you want to do weighted calisthenics. But if you are interested in a deeper conversations about which exercises to use, what's the best progression methods, how to start weighted calisthenics, then definitely feel free to book a 15-minute consultation call with me where I bring my responses to your questions and we'll get a good conversation going. So if you're interested, feel free to click the link in the description or check the pinned comments. But hey, what do I know? If you want to see more content like this, be sure to follow, man. I'm the Tough Fitness Guy out here. No cap.
Cobra trains. He's up next. Make sure y'all subscribe to him. He's number one out here.
He's the toughest fitness guy out here.